Hold on, you're faster than I thought you'd be. Life can be so challenging. Where can you go to get divine clarification, help, and advice? Well, may I introduce Natasha Venter, medium coach and direct connection to your guides and angels. Through her podcast, Life Clarifications, Natasha will help you navigate through and create your life's destiny. My name is Kevin McDonald, co-host of this podcast, and I've seen her work and know that through her incredible talent, you can be changed forever. So let's start another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha. And welcome, everybody. Hello there, young lady. How are you?
I am doing well, and I'm back home again, and it's kind of nice to be home and rearranging everything in my life for 2021.
Yes, you are, because that's what girls do. They just rearrange stuff.
Well, I do this regularly because, the energy around us keeps changing. And so I find that me being the feng shuiist that I am, that if I don't update my home, I don't update. And so with that there's these processes of energy that our homes even need to be shifted and changed. Our clothes, our mindset, our abilities to shift and change do work with all the things around us. And that's the thing that I wanted to talk about is that, we all are going through change, and coming into 2021, we're working into how do we change from 2000 to 2021 when 2020 felt like it didn't work. Well, if people have remembered, and if you go back the last two, that my kid moved to another state. And I have two wonderful kids, so actually 2.5 because I have a stepchild, that, when we're going through change, there's the pretense. What is going to happen? How is change going to happen? You can make all your plans that you want for change, but then change has its own plan. And then everything that you plan for kind of goes awry. And so how can you prep yourself? Well, and sometimes when change happens, kind of like for me leaving my child moving, there's the grief process before it. There's the emotions that hit. There's the aspect of it. Like some of us have decided to sell our home. Well, some of our homes are where we have a lot of memories in them. And so we got to go through the grief process of leaving those, I don't want to call them memories, but those daily reminders of the memories. And when we're working through things like that, it's just an interesting process on how can we manage through much of what we're going through. And so with that I just wanted to help people go through the change by talking about it, because I was actually living it through my child leaving. So the first, before the holidays, it was before the change. And then you guys saw me when I was down in New Mexico. And that day, that Wednesday, was the day actually we just got keys to my kid's apartment. So, and this apartment, it was interesting because, we forget that when we first move into an apartment, there's no sitting. There's nothing to sit on. There's nothing to cook with. There's nothing to sleep on. There's not, especially when you are starting for the first time. And that really gave me a metaphor for life, that when we're starting out for the first time with something, well, and many of us are doing that in 2021.
We're trying to redo. We don't want to go back to 2020. So we're starting from scratch, a lot of us.
Exactly. So we have to find those comfortable things to sit in. We have to contemplate what kind of pots and pans we want to cook our life with. We have to kind of think about what what are the towels we want to rub ourselves down with once we're clean of what's been happening. There was a lot of metaphors in this trip of mine, and we kind of talked about those metaphors last time, and it was kind of interesting how going through that process of now here's the change. The last Wednesday was here's the change. This is what we're applying ourselves to. This is how we're navigating our things to. Well, now I'm after the change. I'm home. And I want everybody to know that, when we're going through a life-altering experience change, and I'm going to say changing jobs, changing houses, family members passing, kids moving, kids getting to that age where like I had a friend who had a hard time while the child turned 18, because that was kind of like a jumping point of life changing. Even somebody coming home in a really bad mood, your partner coming home in a really bad mood could be a life altering experience.
That's true. It's true.
Because of the fact that it shifts who we are. And anything that shifts who we are to an extent is a life-altering experience. And when we're going through those life-altering experiences, those changes, we need to give ourselves time to adapt. And so for like that first weekend I was home, that Saturday, because I flew home on Friday, so that Saturday was my day where I basically didn't have any expectations. I kind of just told myself I'm just going to kind of get Christmas kind of put on the dining room table, because that's what I do is I put everything on the dining room table and then I put them in the so-called boxes that they need to go in.
It's the staging area.
It's the staging area. And so I just had the staging area there. There was a time where I thought I was going to take a nap, but I just kind of shut my eyes and just shut down for a minute or two. But it was that time where I had to catch up with myself, a time where and we have to give ourselves permission to do that, to catch up with ourselves, to integrate in what we've gone through. And when we're doing that, it's amazing how our bodies, because our bodies, if people forget, our bodies are the thing that really is the thing that carries us through the change. And if we forget that our bodies are the thing that's carrying us through our change, sometimes our digestive system gets upset, we get headachy, our joints ache, our shoulders feel heavy, our back aches because we're carrying so much emotionally, our knees might ache because they're afraid of moving forward, our hips are kind of out of joint because we've been sitting or doing things a lot that our bodies aren't used to. And so our bodies just need that time to say, okay, I'm catching up. I'm catching up. And our mind needs to do that too, because our mind had to process a lot. And then, like what I found coming home is that my dog forgot about the boundaries that I created. And, my husband had to get used to me being home because I wasn't home for a week. And so we had to get used to that. He had to figure out who I was again, because I shift and change every time I'm gone. He shift and changed being home by himself. And so we had to kind of get ourselves back into a good position to be with each other. And people forget that there's that ripple effect that happens when we come in to something like that after a change. And I want everybody to know that this change that we're going through from 2020 to 2021, that we're going to have to forgive ourselves for what we didn't do or who we were sometimes. We were going into emotions that we did not expect we were going to go into. There were some emotions that many of us hadn't had to deal with because we kept ourselves so distracted from our lives. And our emotions kind of came into our face. And talking with the ancestors that I did, and many of them were the ones that talked to me or when I was doing a mediumship session with someone, were the ancestors that came across in the covered wagons or in the ships or in, life altering experiences like that, that they came through and said, we who have gone through those life altering experiences just needed to just be kept walking forward. We kept looking at what is the next thing we can do, because if we didn't do that, we would lose hope. And hope is one thing that keeps us moving forward.
So let me ask you: do you embrace change, or do you resist change?
When I'm very human, there's a resistance. Then there's the spiritual side of me that says every ending is a new beginning. But I'm going to tell you, though, that when change hits me in reality, kind of like the one day that that my job ended at school, which I had no insight to, even being intuitive, it kind of came out of the blue on me. And then my cat ended up dying, which I had some tellers before that, but she chose the same day. Those changes hit me. And it took me a breath or two or a moment, that even when I went to school and the principal asked me, "Do you want to do this job?" I had to stop him and say, "Can I just go in the bathroom and catch up with myself, please?" you know? And I had to shed a couple tears, and I had to kind of just collect myself for a minute. And then I walked back in and I said, I can make some decisions now, because I gave myself, my mind, my spirit, and my emotions and my body a chance to kind of just say, we're here, aren't we? Oh, crap.
So it was, see, like, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I enjoy change. Change for me is cool. When there's, especially change you don't see coming. A lot of times that's really cool. Or it's like the end of a book. You get to the end of the book and you close the book, and then you get another book and you start another and stuff. So change for me is it's kind of a different animal than it is for some. So I don't have the problem with change nearly as much as, but I understand where you're coming from, because you like stability, and you like, well, and you've been married for a long time, and your life has been stable for a long time. So change, and
I'm a Cancerian.
With your work and stuff, and I'm a Virgo, so I'm not sure exactly what that means exactly, but
Virgos like things in their dot to dot to dots, but you have some other things in your planet that will help with that. I can say that I don't mind change. I see the aspect of it, but I'm going to tell you, though, that in 1 week I can have 4 or 5 life altering changes. And so for me, that I get so many changes in my life, my bag gets kind of full.
Sure, no, I get it.
And so with that, I mean, I work with Archangel Azrael, and he's the ultimate timekeeper. He's actually one of my personal guides is Archangel Azrael, and he's the ultimate timekeeper. He's the one that helps people walk over from life to death. He's the one that holds time. If I'm going to have him, like when I was flying back and I really wanted to catch the 7:30 bus instead of waiting for the 9 o'clock, or the 5 o'clock bus instead of waiting until the 9 o'clock bus, I asked him to help me with time.
That was really important, because that 4 hour difference, it would have put you home way late, because you are really far north. And so, yeah, just there aren't very many buses.
Bus ride. Yeah, it's a 2-hour bus ride to come home. And then, my husband's usually in bed by 9 o'clock. So 8:30, 9 o'clock. So it's really out of his timeline. But there again, it's that, when I have so much change that happens in my life that, and I even cause it, like me rearranging half of my furniture, in the last, 4 weeks, I've rearranged pretty much, well, I haven't rearranged my bed position. And I haven't rearranged that bed position. But I've rearranged couches, I've rearranged TV. I mean, I've rearranged a lot in my house. So some of this is self-inflicted, because when I'm changing so much, which I know that when I was on my trip, that I crossed over a metaphorical bridge of my understandings and my calling to do some work. And going over that bridge, that's why my husband couldn't really reach me for a couple days, because he felt that change. And that's why I had to update a lot of my spiritual room, because if I was going to update things, then my things around me needed to shift and change, so that when I'm looking at something, I know that it's reading me differently. If that makes any sense. And there
Sure.
again, the feng shui that work that I do, it really helps me to update, because sometimes, like, the knowledge corner, if we keep our knowledge corner the same old thing, does our knowledge update? Not really. And so
Okay, hold on, wait. You just said knowledge corner. What the hell is that?
in feng shui, in the bagua, there are different representations of meaning. So I do the kind that when you walk in the room, there's certain corners that represent. So if I'm walking in a room, to my right is my helpful people corner. And then the next, and it's kind of taken into sections. And I'll kind of show, I'll draw a quick map here just because I can, and I will. Let me get to a piece of paper that I can do that with.
Yeah, see, because that's weird, because a corner in the room that I enter is a corner. You see.
And so you walk into that corner of the room. So like if you are if you're in the corner, then you'd be walking into, let's say, it's probably you're walking into your helpful people corner.
Oh, okay. Or maybe I'm being disciplined by my dad corner. That's why I'm in. No.
No.
Okay, just checking.
And then you'll have to excuse me, everyone, because yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not a speller when I'm trying to do three things at one time.
That's all right. We'll wait. By the way, if you'd like to make a comment or chat with Natasha, you can on YouTube. Just go and to the chat section and chat away, and we'll get it to Natasha, and you guys can talk via chat today. And also, if you want to go to angeliclarifications.com, that's her website, and you can find out more information about her and the things that she does so extraordinarily well, being a psychic medium. And apparently, I didn't realize she was a feng shui goddess as well. I have to tell you, long time ago, when I was doing Positive Talk Radio, me and a co-host, Kim Miller's her name. We had a guy who professed to be a feng shui expert. The problem with being a feng shui expert is if you can't explain it well, it's difficult for anybody to get what the heck you're saying or what the heck you're talking about.
Exactly. And I'm apologizing that I didn't have this ready, because I didn't know really I was going to talk about this. So I didn't have it ready so I can share the screen. Okay, so when you walk into a doorway, the first thing would be your knowledge corner to your right. Okay, then you have, backward. I don't know. It's backwards the way I'm looking. So, and then we have the relationship corner, or the family music corner. Then we have the relationship corner. So everything to your right as you walk into the room would be your helpful people, your family music, or your relationship. Okay. So relationship would be with yourself or your partner. So like in this corner, you would have, if you have a partner, you'd want two things that represent good partnership. So like I have a picture that says love to it. I have a statue that has a male and a female, because my husband and I are male and female, two of them kind of dancing, kind of like that, the two people up on the top corner up here, that would be in my relationship corner. And then at the top is, where do you want to go in your life? And then the far left corner would be your prosperity corner. That would be your money corner. That would be how are you bringing things into your life? And then the next stage in your corner or your middle of the room would be your health corner. So like if you have something broken in that area of the wall, or you have a mess, see how your body is feeling. Like if you have something that has a broken piece, see if there's like a part of your body that's feeling broken. And then you have your knowledge corner. Now, knowledge is an interesting corner because I know a lot of people, like for me, when I first moved in this house, I had my dirty clothes in that corner. My dyslexia had a heyday during that time until I cleaned it out. I put a dresser there. I put a picture of myself that I actually got commissioned for my husband. And then I put my necklaces that I keep organized. And I kind of reorganized it so I had organization. There for a while when I was working on my dyslexia, I actually had dictionaries in that corner.
Oh, really?
To help myself because I was where, if people know me, I didn't start reading until after high school. And so with that as I was, for me to climb out of that pole, and then when we moved into this house, my mom had Lou Gehrig's disease. And so after having a kid, finding out my mom had Lou Gehrig's disease, I had some brain cells that kind of got fried. So my dyslexia had to really work with me. And so in order to really jump myself forward, I had to do some extreme things like putting dictionaries inside of my knowledge corner so I had knowledge where I didn't. Well, the center is a combination of everything. And so that's where I put all the elements, fire, wood, representations of all those. And that helps. Kind of like for me in the center of this room is my reading table. And so I do my center in my reading table, but I have a stone. This table is wood. I have, the only thing I don't have is representation of fire, but I have fire over here, which is pretty close, so that's the only thing that if I was to add, and I usually have water when I'm drinking. And so there's those different elements. And so when we feng shui our scenarios, it does help. Kind of like with me, when I was down in New Mexico, one of my kids' friends their relationship broke up, and I walked into the bedroom and I go, oh, well, that might be a reason. He had a sword and dirty clothes.
Typical guy.
Yes, swords aren't bad. I'm not going to tell you swords aren't bad, but they can be if they're not set with intention. And a lot of that generation likes, I have swords that I have for ceremony, and like my kid has about 6 of them because, she likes to have those representations, but where you put them and how you navigate with them is important, just like a clock and that kind of thing. But feng shui, if we feng shui our area, which feng shui is basically, does it feel right? If something doesn't feel right, then it means it's off. If something feels right and energy can flow, breathe, things are moving. If you see, I have a lot of things around me, but everything kind of has a place and it feels right.
And what's surprising is that everything that you have, because you showed me your room as you looked around it, or as you had panned the camera around it, it's like you've got a ton of stuff. Now you're telling me that everything that you have in your room means something.
Yes.
I'm not that deep. Well, can't think of all the things that it would mean to me that would mean something. I don't know, but that's just me.
Then there's some people that are minimalists, and I can say I'm not. And my mom was a hoarder, and so I love feng shui because it's kept me from hoarding, when we have those types of those things, we can work it out. And I'm going to tell you, it's like this corner here. This is my relationship corner. Okay, so feng shui, the top shelf is all about my relationship. So like there's candles that say love on it. There's the people, the couple that's dancing. I have an angel there. The next shelf is my altar for angels, which I have books and I have things like that. And I wanted to have some knowledge in my relationship. So that's why I have some books. The next one is fairies. And that one's a little chaotic. Well, if you know fairies, like I know fairies, they're not perfectionists. They like things a little askew. If you look at a yard that's not been maintained, how does it really look? It looks a little disorganized. Well, that's a fairy for you. And then the next one is about feng shui. It's all my books about feng shui, and there's the stones, and there's that kind of thing. So even though this is in my relationship corner, I've applied it to being what it's needing to be. And then since this is not in my bedroom, the underneath here, the dark parts are all I've done scrapbooking. So there are our family history in photo albums. And so with that with our relationship, I have a relationship with all these and more. And so with that, having a relationship with everything, including my husband, is important to me.
Well, like in your bedroom, then, if you're to follow your feng shui principles, where do you put the bed?
The way that you really want to put your bed is when you walk in the room, that it's off to a corner so you can see who's coming into the room. Oh, okay. And you really don't want to have it like I would not put it like underneath this like a window, so if you're walking in, my feet would be out the door and my head would be at the window. You don't want something like that because then your energy flows out the window. But you can put something in it. Like I have stones and stuff in this window, and that helps stop the energy flow. And so with that, there's these things. But going into the change, when we do these changes around us, what feels right now? What has been bothering me? Like we were talking on Monday with Life Between Lives about how can we get moving even though we're kind of housebound still? Well, when we start walking from one end of the room to the other, or you go around in a circle, remember clockwise builds, anti-clockwise it takes it apart. And so what do you want to build? Well, as you're walking around, look at that thing. Many of us have like cups or something, cups that we put pens in, and it's been sitting there forever. Can you imagine how much old energy it has? So take the pens out, wash the cup out, put the pens back in, but see how that cup kind of becomes differently energized. We have much of even the minimalists, we have things that maybe sit around a little bit. See what's been stagnant in our lives. See where, what corner it is. And I do the kind that there is the feng shui that you can use a magnet with, north, south, east, and west. I just go for when you walk in a room or walk into your house or walk into or drive into your yard. And when we work with those kinds of things, it does help us shift what's going on around us. Because I know for me, now when I look around, I go, okay, I've shifted things enough that I can manage what's going to come into my life.
Well, that's good because that helps you feel grounded too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It really does. And many of us, our homes are our safe place. Well, I wouldn't call them safe anymore because we've had so much emotion in them. And so sometimes on a nicer day, open up the doors if you can and ask the energy to shift. Light a candle, bang your hands, do some, ring a bell, whatever you can do to shift the energy in the home, and that will help shift us. Especially after a change.
So now you had a change, pre-change, and then a change during change, and then a post-change. What's the next change that you're going to have?
What's the next change I'm going to have is where life wants me to walk into.
And how do you determine
Ending.
what that is?
Every ending is a chance for a new beginning. So I have an understanding that life gives us whispers. And when we listen to those whispers, we have chances. Kind of like I needed to talk with a friend about, she's an intuitive friend of mine, and she kind of understands my world. And I needed somebody who could totally understand me without judging me, because I was still processing through some of my shifts, that she actually offered for us to write a book together. She actually offered us to do a podcast together to help some of these young kids who are struggling with their intuitiveness, because there's so many kids and those 18 to 25-year-olds that are just, or 26-year-olds that are very intuitive, and they don't know how to manage it. And some of them are committing suicide because they just can't deal with the energies that is calling in. And that is that doorway that I opened up. And I'm so grateful, because I've been called to work with them, but I didn't know how to apply myself. There was kind of a miscommunication that was going on inside of me. And I crossed over that bridge of communication, and I feel like that I can be helpful. And this friend of mine, is one that she understands that age group. She's actually got a kid who's in that age group that they're very communicative, and she actually helps out in the school system. For me, the school work my job that I work in the elementary, where she actually has helped out in the high schools and helped a lot of the kids who needed homes. And so she's been in that age group for quite a while, and she's a fast thinker, and they're a fast thinker, a little slower thinker. Like technology for me isn't quick, and technology for her is quick. And so for her, she can manage. There again, I called in someone who knew greater than I, who can help me fill in my weaknesses. And like Kevin, you came into my life when I needed someone to fill in my weakness, and here we are. I was calling in somebody else who can help me with my weaknesses, and here she came in. And so I don't know how it's going to play out yet. I'm asking for blessings with this. I'm asking for the guidance with this. But at the same time, though, life gave me a whisper. Now it's up to me to help it walk forward.
Well, any work that you can do with adolescents and people that are having emotional trouble because of just because of life, that is a really good idea. So I applaud you for that. That's really cool. So when's the book coming out?
When I can speak it, when she can speak it, and then I can have somebody else type it for me.
Well, and you need an editor too, and stuff.
Yes.
And the podcast, when is that coming?
We're having conversation tonight. It's in the process. It's kind of like when we first started out. We started talking at the end of July, and by the beginning of September or the middle of September is when we started with this.
Has she ever done one before?
Yes.
Oh, good. So she has the equipment and the stuff you need.
She's got the ability. Now, if we need a little bit more help, I know someone who I can call. And it's not
really. That's good news. Who might that be? For heaven's sakes.
I have no idea. But like I said, life whispers to us. And when it whispers, that's the time when we start really looking at what is it to be? What's it's called out to be? Like, she sent an email to me, and I honestly told her, I said, I needed a couple days to catch up with myself. And so now this is Wednesday. We're going to be talking, and I feel like I'm ready to start stepping into that world, because I had to settle, especially my helpful people corner. I really needed to get that settled. It's my ancestor corner in my spiritual world, in my spirit room here, that I needed to get that settled, because they were asking me to, for one, before Christmas, and now I finally did it yesterday.
Well, you have when you get excited about something, you just go do it. And
I
if
do.
you need to uh, rearrange stuff quite a little bit, because you were telling me earlier that you do this like 2 or 3 times a year.
Yes.
Does your
Yes.
husband ever like can't find stuff anymore because you keep
Um,
moving it around?
no, actually, I'm kind of grateful because his mother would rearrange furniture all the time. I have a thing about I see my other if I wasn't doing this work, I think I would be helping people with their world in their houses by feng shuiing and or helping them organize. I organize my closets first and my cupboards first, so then that helps me put things away better. Now, I'm not a perfectionist by any means. Obviously, I'm not a perfectionist. But at the same time, though, I have to have things workable. And so I spent a lot of last year reorganizing a lot of my closets, shifting through things, moving things around, even like my clothes. I used to have everything in my closet. Well, and like my shirts and stuff in my closet and my sweaters were in my drawers. Now I've switched them around. I do that about once a year just to kind of shake things up. There again, change creates change.
See, now that's the difference between you and I is that you wake up one morning and go, I don't know, what do you want to do today? I don't know, what do you want to do? I know, let's clean out a closet and rearrange stuff. It's like I can come up with a whole bunch of other stuff to do besides that.
Well, actually, I don't do that. There's many times I go and sit on the couch and just rest. So, no, I don't do that every day. But I'm telling you, though, that I'm feeling like there's this push inside me that's got to get me ready for something that's going to be coming.
Oh,
And the more that I can prep myself, kind of like I felt before we met, there's that process of change. And if I don't meet it, because of the fact that preparation and getting ready, which means what is life teaching me? What is life going to help me with? What is life going to pull us forward? Getting myself prepped meets opportunity so that I can move forward. And so the more I can prep myself, and that's the thing that I feel like 2020 was getting us ready. If we can go back and look at how emotions had to be managed, well, now we're stronger people because we've gone through a lot of our emotions that we were forgetting about because we were always distracting ourselves from them. Many of us had to go through the grief process of losing someone for the first time. And grief, oh, my love goes to you because it's one of the biggest house cleaners we can go through, metaphorically. When we go through the grief process, when we get through it and we walk through it, which there's no way you cannot walk through grief, and we get to that walkable part of grief that sits with us for the rest of our lives, that when we get to that point of being able to walk it, we find out that we are much more available for life than we were before. We're more well-rounded. We're more available for how are we going to manage our own selves? Because we find out that we're not the people we used to be after grief. We're new normals. Now, everybody handles grief differently. I know, Kevin, you handle it differently than I do.
mm-hmm.
And I can say that I handled it a little differently than I normally probably would have been. But, I had my parents die within 3 years of each other, plus an uncle who I was very, very, very close with, plus my grandparents and I'm an only child, only grandchild, all within 7 years passed away. And
So
so
that whole Thanksgiving that whole Thanksgiving dinner table passed away on you,
exactly.
and that is
Exactly.
hard. That's very hard.
And so with that, and then you include animals in there, and you include and my cat who passed away 2 years ago now, September. She was my familiar. She was my go-to. She was my, when I was not grounded, she'd come and sit on my lap. She was my healer. She was the one that walked through 7 years of my husband's last 7 years of my husband's drinking, and the 7 years of him getting into sobriety. So she was my one that walked through transition with me. And so when she passed, it was closing of a door. And many of my changes are closing of doors so that a new door can start. They're not, I have the simple ones of my kid moving out of state. I have the simple ones of my husband changing jobs. I have the easy one of like me being in the school system, of one day I have a job, the next day I don't. One day we're in school, the next day we're not. My group's changing constantly. The teacher saying, zooming in, and then your Zoom stops working, and then you have to just apply what you know to what you know. I'm used to those kinds of changes, and those are the things that happen every day, because that's called life. And I can tell my husband who works in retail, he goes through many changes in a day, because retail is just, oy, oy,
It's
oy.
hard. It's hard.
Like you being a bus driver, you had many changes going through the day. So that actually helped you manage your other daily changes.
Sure. Sure. It was easier for me to understand and to get through stuff and to let stuff go. As a bus driver, you have got to let stuff go. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we've gone through the feng shui about how to shift the energy in our home. Now, if you don't remember, you can look up the Bagua on feng shui Bagua on Google. You can do on YouTube or whatever you want to do there. But I just want people to know that as we're walking into this new year, my intuition is telling me that this is going to be another doozy of a year. And the more that we can set our feet on the ground, the more we'll be able to walk forward. It can be an amazing year. I know 2020 was an amazing year for me. I got on the radio for the first time, and I'm doing that monthly. I'm on YouTube twice a week now with you. My intuitive business is growing more and more because of all these applications. And now I know that there's going to be another layer of this. And I'm not knowing what school's going to look like. And so I'm really looking at how can I move forward? Because as a door ends, another one opens. It's just a given. And I'm actually grateful sometimes when doors shut, because it gives me a chance to start again. Kind of like when my mother passed. It was one of the hardest things I had to do, but I can tell you, within a year later, doing the internal work I did, I was in Hawaii doing Doreen Virtue's angel therapy practitioner course to teach me. It didn't teach me. It gave me the application and the guts to say, you got it, to be able to do this work. So that was when the universe pushed me and said, it's time for you to be who you're supposed to be.
So what is this course again? What was it that you took?
Doreen Virtue's angel therapy practitioner course. And then 6 months later, I did her mediumship course, which I've always been a medium, but it gave me the application of doing it with a mic in front of me. It gave me the application of doing it with people who are peers, which means that I didn't have to prove myself. I just had to trust myself. Right. When you're trying to impress a peer, you can't impress a peer. All you can do is just be yourself.
See, so that is a major change that you initiated and went through. What did your husband say when you said, I'm going to Hawaii for a month? Or how long was it?
It was only about 4 days. That's when he was still drinking, and
so he didn't remember the conversation.
And my house actually blew up. My kid, I actually had to have my girlfriend come in and take my kids because my husband was drinking. And so, as life does things, sometimes we have to do. Sometimes we got to do those things that are uncomfortable because we're moving forward. And sometimes that calling that we have to do is greater than what life is letting us do at that time. And we have to just apply what we're doing. But I'm going to let you know, though, and I'm going to go to something that I keep getting this tap that I need to say at some point in this hour is that what I know at that time, I only knew that information. So last year, 2020, we had emotions half the time. We had moments where we weren't ourselves. And we only had the information at the time that we could do what we could do. Tomorrow, or right now in 2021, looking back, we have other information and we would have maybe made another choice. At that time, we couldn't. We didn't. Half of us were so exhausted. How can we make better decisions? We had kids. Some of us had kids at home trying to do school, us trying to do our work, us trying to feed our families, trying to figure out how to get the next money to pay our bills. We were stretched out. At the same time, at that time, we were only where we could make those decisions. And we need to have a form of forgiveness. Because tomorrow, this year, this moment, we may have another idea of what we could have done, but we couldn't have. But yet, at the same time, though, what can we do now that we were thinking we should have done that we can do now to move forward? There's never a wrong time to try again. There's never a wrong time to say, oh, wait a minute, I have a new idea for a different perspective on that. If I shift that just a little bit, I can do that.
Well, a lot of really cool ideas are going to be coming about because things are going to be permanently changed. We're never going to be able to go back to the way we used to do things completely. So things are going to change in a few. In 2020, who'd have thunk because this time last year, who'd have thunk that we would start a pandemic in February, and that so many people would die through all the way through that year, and that they would shut down, and that nobody thought anywhere near. But now we have an idea, so now you can prepare yourself for a way to make it work, and be creative, and don't fight change, because change, it's a coming, and it's going to come a big time.
But what we can do is we can go, okay, change is happening. What is life offering me? So there again is writing something down. Things that aren't working, things that are working. Ideas I had, ideas I have now, ideas I had as a kid or younger. When I first started out in life, what was some of those things I had? Many of us need to go back to what calls to our soul. And so going back and remembering what we did when we were younger, what did we do after we graduated from high school or college, or what were some of those ideas that we had? We're different people now, but yet can we apply even just a flavoring of that? I loved working with people. Oh, wait a minute, how can I work with people differently now? There's different ways of applying what the universe, and then really pay attention to what songs are out there calling to you, what commercials keep coming up, what conversations you hear in grocery stores of other people talking, what birds, animals are walking to you. Many of us have crow that comes to us. Well, crow's about magic, new magic. What can you believe in yourself about? I light a candle daily that creates magic in my life. I'm asking for the magic to come to my life so I can be who I'm to be, so I can be the love and the light for others that is to be. Let the breath in and the breath out. Let prosperity come. Let me be the prosperity to go to others. There's this balance of magic that we're doing. And when we really believe it and walk it and trust it, it's amazing where we can go. But it always takes that step. And I'm going to go back to a conversation we have sometimes is the spark to lead us forward. Kind of like I had a conversation back, probably about 5-7 years ago about a book title. Well, I brought it up to my friend. And I don't bring it up to very many people because I don't want to sabotage it. It's still in me to do it. And she says, why don't we add this to it? And then that created a whole bunch of new magic. Because it's about maybe book 1, book 2, book 3.
Oh, so now we're doing a trilogy.
We don't know.
When's your first book coming out?
It's the spark. And many of us need that spark of conversation, of radio, of TV, of walking by something that in our house that we've constantly walked by and we forget about it. And we pick it up and move it to another corner because it felt better. Kind of like for me, I had a trunk that I had over in my Helpful People corner. I'm not using it anymore, but I have a grandson that comes over once in a while. Well, not since COVID, but, and there's toys that are sitting in a corner and it's in my knowledge corner and the toys are getting dusty or disorganized. Well, I moved the trunk to that corner so that they're tucked away nicely and organized. So it's like there's things that can move around to help add light to a new area.
I agree. Hey, Natasha, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
They can get a hold of me at angelicclarifications.com or email me at natasha@angelicclarifications.com. And knowing that I work with all realms, it doesn't matter what you believe in. I understand we have all had a life. We've all made mistakes. We've all had greatness. We've all been who we wanted to be. We've all been who we aren't wanting to be. And so with me, I just love to help people walk through their moment and maybe forgive a corner of their world in the past.
Forgive a corner of their world in the past. What do you mean? Leave something in the past that they have been dealing with lately that they can let it go. How do you help them let it go?
I help them transform it. I have an understanding that many times we can't let things go, but we can transform it. Kind of like we maybe transform a top that didn't work anymore, but we bought something new. We didn't necessarily transform that one top, but we transformed what was happening in our lives. And and as we're talking, I was called to pull some cards.
Well, this is a good segment to end the show with, is for you to pull cards every time and see what happens. And when we say pulling cards, we're not talking about pinochle. We're talking about tarot.
Actually, we're not. We're talking about these are oracle cards. And so I do not do tarot. I do not. I use angel, fairy, and oracle cards.
But aren't they kind of the same concept, though?
They are the same concept. It's just how they're applying.
Ah, gotcha.
So my first card was, and this is where we're walking into. So we're kind of... in a 3-card deck, it's kind of like the first card is where we are, where we've been. So the risk card. So we've been asked to take a risk. We've been asking to take a vulnerable risk with ourselves. And how can we apply that vulnerable risk to a new application? Because risk is the beginning of a new path. So how can we take that smallest risk? And it doesn't mean spending millions of dollars on something. Sometimes it's just throwing an idea out to somebody, kind of like how at the beginning of this, that you took a risk asking me if I wanted to do a podcast with you.
Sure.
And I broke down in tears because that's the thing that it's been calling to me for so freaking long that finally I had somebody answer my prayer. So take the risk. And if it didn't turn out where if you found out in that conversation that it wasn't an idea, you could have ended the conversation saying, well, Natasha, I kind of was tossing out the idea. And, the more that I've talked about it, the more I thought this isn't the right time for me. So I'm sorry I threw that to you, but I'll get in touch. I'll let you know more when I know more.
Oh, sure. That would have worked really well. You were sitting there in tears of gratitude that I'd offered to do a podcast with you. And I said, oh, by the way, just never mind.
But it's not meaning that you say that one sentence and then the next sentence. It means that over the time of us talking, right. Evolution, but see, risk.
Here's the thing about that. Let me just and I understand the risk part of it, and I appreciate that because you took a risk as well. The risk that you took was that you didn't know if you'd be any good at it. You didn't know if you'd like it. A whole bunch of stuff went through your head all at the same time. And
I didn't know you.
You didn't know me very well at all. And at the same time, I was taking a risk that you were going to be fine. But you know what I discovered over time is that it's not really a risk. It's going to work or it's not. And if we can make somebody happy or do something well for somebody, then that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
But the one thing that we kept doing was we kept communicating.
Of course. Nothing happens if you can't communicate.
Exactly. So risk means that you communicate with yourself, you communicate with those around you. Because remember that we are part of the team. My own mind is part of the team. We have to risk talking with ourselves to say, can I really do this? Because even me going on down south to do the radio for the first time, I had to ask myself, was I in alignment for this journey? Sure. Was I worthy and in an alignment with this journey?
See, I'm actually more interested in not the conversations that you and I have, but the conversations that your guides and my guides have on the other side as they're plotting this all together. It's like, okay, because I can see there being some differences of opinion on some things on the other side as they're sitting around a boardroom and they're saying, all right, well, let's do this and then no, that's not going to work. We need to do that. And I can just see that going on up there.
But I can tell you, this journey is not done. It's an evolution because the next card is the butterfly. So the butterfly, we are going through the stage when the coronavirus first started. If we took the metaphor of the butterfly, that sometimes we're the egg, we're beginning a new idea. We're in the process of thinking about what we're doing. And then we're the caterpillar. We become the caterpillar, which is chewing on the information we have. It's gathering the information. It's reading the books. It's going on Google. Like for us, before we started this, I spent a lot of time on Google. I was the caterpillar gaining information. Then we have to go into the cocoon. We have to go into the cocoon to kind of integrate. That's kind of like what winter is for us. We kind of go in the house. We're not outside a lot. We're not real physical. We're not in the process of doing a lot. We may just read a book once in a while. We may, there's many of us that are having to do things, but like for me, I was doing my cocoon stage by being on the radio, but there was a part of me that came home and was quiet so I can integrate in. Then we have to come out of the cocoon. Well, the cocoon is the beginning of something new, but it's stretching our wings, and stretching our wings for the first time is never comfortable. So starting something new, it's kind of like a new phone. I had to tell myself when I got my new phone, this is new. In another couple weeks, it'll be normal. I'll know it, but learning it new, it's going to be okay. So if we treat life many times like a new phone or something new in our lives, that it's something new and we have to get used to it, that's the beginning of a butterfly. So we can fly and land on our beautiful flowers, that we can be our beautiful self, that we can furl our wings out and stretch where we're supposed to go. And I can tell you that as spring comes, What are we planning this winter to bring us into this butterfly stage? But it's our own minds that are either going to stop us or move us forward. And we have to believe in the risk, because without the risk and coming and knowing the butterfly, we won't have movement. And I know that risk and movement are the same cards, but isn't that the metaphor for life? That it's all the perception that we have. If we're afraid of the risk, do we stop ourselves from the movement? And
a lot of times.
And movement, if you notice that this path has roots, it has maybe rocks in the path, but we have to pick up our feet and pay attention to where we're at so we can move forward. Because
if you're not willing to accept the risk, then generally speaking, you're not willing to move.
Exactly. So I always pick the last card of the deck and the first card of the deck. So if I have the deck like this, I'll pick the last card and I'll pick the top card. The last card represents where we've been. Death. Death is not a bad card. It means an ending. It just means something is stopping. Something is closing. This COVID was a great chance for us to all start a new normal, because many of us weren't doing well in our lives. So we needed to have a form of death in our lives so we can move forward.
Well, that's good news right there.
It is, because it's actually the same picture. Oops. It's all the same picture because it all represents the same. And yet, in our future, and right now our government is representing this, is we have to let go of the ego. We have to let go of the wounded ego. We have to let go of the human part of us that is not willing to take the risk, become our beautiful butterfly, so that we can have movement. Many of us are stuck in our ego. Can I do that? No, I can't do it well, so I'm not going to do it. Many of us are stuck in our ego. Oh, I just don't have the guts to do it. Many of us are stuck in our ego of trying to prove so we're better than others. We're just human doing the human walk. So the more that we can let go of our ego and just be ourselves, be our vulnerable selves, especially with those that we can trust, we're going to have great movement.
Unless that you use your ego in the right way to accept the risk so that you can move forward, and then that leads to the death of what was and the birth of what can be.
Exactly, because ego is a good thing. I use my ego a lot, especially when I'm on the playground and I need to talk to someone who's bullying somebody else. I let my ego do the work. But then I have to remember, ego, now that we're done with that process, we have to sit down and be part of the team again, instead of being up there in front of me all the time. Ego is also, there's a part of me right now that has ego, because I needed a little bit of guts to say I can do this and talk out loud on YouTube and have anybody and everybody be willing to either accept it or criticize it.
You have to. And it's like when I started doing radio 20 years ago, and I went to KKNW, and they said it's $150 an hour, and I said I want 10 hours a week, which is $1,500 a week. If I didn't have an ego to believe that I could pull it off, I never would have done it.
Exactly.
And because I did that, even though at that time it didn't work out exactly as I'd hoped, it led us to this. So there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the future on Wednesdays for life clarifications, we need to allow about 15 minutes for you to pull some cards around a particular topic and stuff. Can you want to do that?
The fairies. The fairies wanted to come out. Business venture. Trust and follow through on the new business idea or career opportunity.
See, there you
What
go.
are we talking about? There's no mistake with cards. I love it. Yes. And I agree that there's this process with cards that is a blessing that I can maybe do for others. And I know we're at that 5 o'clock time and the hour time, but the angels want to call too. So I'm just kind of card. Okay.
That's up to you. It's your show, you know.
So with this card was upside down, and it's the card Rosetta. You have a gift for working with young people, and your divine purpose involves helping, teaching, or parenting children. So upside down means there's a block. Okay. The card message for this is that we all have an inner child in us. We all have an inner younger part of us that got hurt or damaged or abused or bullied. And we all have the ability to say, come on, you can come and be part of this adult world. You're safe. And if we can do that, we have the ability to be more well-rounded in our lives.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, young lady, you have yourself a wonderful day. Say hello to everybody and say goodbye to everybody because it's after 5 and you told me to keep you on time if I could.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that because I love doing this kind of work. I want everybody to know that even though through the bleakest time and everything is dark around me, I didn't even turn on lights in the rest of my house because it was light earlier, that if darkness is all around us, create your own light, because this next moment, you never know when life is going to reach out and say, through a song, through the birds, through a conversation with a friend, through watching TV, through taking a little risk and just putting it out there as an idea. You never know where your life is going to tell you can go in 2021. Trust it, because it will work. Even if it's not in the idea you begin with, it's the idea that keeps in motion. And if you keep an idea in motion and you keep the new coming in, because sometimes it's not meant to go this way, it's meant to go this way. So trust. Life will show you if you accept it and you surrender to it. And if you need inspirational quotes, I have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that I do inspirational quotes with, Natasha Venter, and then there's different 96 and 11s and and that kind of thing. But just trust that life will give you answers if you're willing to look.
It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Everybody, you take care of yourselves, and Natasha, thank you. Go to angelicclarifications.com. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care.